Hello and welcome to the first episode of Homes by Liam. Now this YouTube channel is set up to follow the day-to-day of an estate agency. The highs, the lows, the clients, the properties that we lose, the properties that we win, and the business overall. We want to captivate the journey and show really what estate agency is about. Now this week we're going to see a number of properties. One that's on the market for offers over £700,000, however rented for £4,000 per calendar month. We're then going to move down and meet Jake the electrician, who's currently undergoing a refurbishment at a property that he's purchased. And then we're going to go to a terrace property that's recently completed and look at a damp issue that's ongoing, and hopefully the new buyer has a solution. So if you're interested in estate agency, how deals are done, how we meet the clients, how we build the business, then hit subscribe and follow us for more. So we just arrived at Birkenhead Road in Birkenhead. Now I was very nervous about putting this property on the market, not because it's not the sexiest house, because these terraced houses are amazing homes when they are loved. I just knew it was going to get a lot of interest from investors, from first-time buyers, and it was on the market for £110,000. And I wasn't wrong. Within the first few hours, we had 6 viewings penciled in that evening, and we received over asking price offers. However, there was something that the seller was not telling us. So the property is riddled with damp. Now, damp in a property like this is very common. However, you can see it right the way down the bottom. We questioned this with the seller because he had received a full asking price offer but didn't declare it to us. We were none of the wiser, and this wasn't visible when we actually came to give the marketing price on the property. The seller come back to us and said when he remortgaged the property a year ago, the mortgage company said you need to get a damp specialist to come out. He was quoted £2,000, but what did the landlord do? He decided to do the damp course himself. Now that ultimately failed, and as we can see here, now the paint is just crumbling off the wall. So the current buyer's come in, she's had her level 2 survey report, and that's something I always recommend. Definitely gives you a warm fuzzy feeling in terms of the property that you're buying. So there were 2 damp specialists that came to view this property, and they both gave 2 totally different quotes. The first damp specialist came in and he said it'll cost £4,000 to take out all the damp, rectify the issue. And the second specialist came in only last week and quoted £8,000. Now that is a big difference between both specialists. They are coming in next week to complete the works, or at least start it, because the property completes on Friday and it receives its new owner. However, what is involved with the damp course? So essentially, the specialist, Gary, is going to come in and he's going to expose the brick. That brick is going to be injected, and then it will take a few days to allow the brick to dry out. And then from that point, that's where he'll either put a membrane on or he'll rectify the work. He's the specialist, he'll crack on with that. I am not a damp specialist, so don't be going to the comments and saying, Liam, you're absolutely wrong. This is a property that when we marketed it, you could turn the key, walk straight into. Now we're potentially looking at £8,000 worth of work. We have renegotiated ever so slightly to take into account some of the work, but this property is moving forward with its new buyer. So we are going to crack these windows open a little bit, come straight into the property. This is actually the first time that I've come back and I can really smell the damp coming out. Even walking through the main entrance, you can see the mould all down the side of the skirting board, so that's something else that's going to have to get ripped out. But within the air, you can certainly smell the damp at the moment, and that is something that definitely needs to be rectified, because no one wants to be living in this smell. Now with these properties, you find that they have a really high turnover in terms of owners, especially if people are still flipping properties. Now that is another question. Is property flipping still a thing? Because in the 90s and the noughties, it certainly was. However, today, there's a lot of factors to take into account where investors essentially are not getting what they want in terms of that dirty word, profit. It shouldn't be a dirty word, because ultimately, investors are coming into properties, they're renovating the space and providing serviceable homes to the market, and ultimately, putting something else back into that community and helping that community come together. Looking at this property at Brydale, if it was me and if I was to do any work, taking away the damp issue, what I would be doing is I'd be keeping this door frame, I'd be bricking this one up and actually building that as a walk-in shower, and then building a whole new bathroom, refitting that whole new bathroom. So we've got a new toilet, new sink, we've got the bath, we've got a walk-in shower, and actually this is quite a big size, and I think it'd be silly not to do that. It's very easy property to sell, and quite common that these properties are on the market for a very short period of time. Unless they're tenanted, they seem to take a lot longer, and that's mainly because of legislation changes in the UK at the moment. Now, this property was previously renting for around about £700 per calendar month. Obviously, it's got a purchase price now of £110,000. So, cracking property, and the reason for it is essentially it's a low-level entry for investors. We had 2 people from London come and view this property, and bear in mind, so they must have already been in the area, but the property would have only been on the market for around about 6 or 7 hours before it actually went under offer. Cracking properties, you can turn the key 9 times out of 10. You look at this, the walls are painted white, it's got new carpet down, it's got built-in wardrobes. You can move someone into the property straight away if you're renting it. And on the flip side, if you're a first-time buyer, or you're looking to downsize, again, you can walk straight in. I know we've got the issue of the damp downstairs. That is something that's getting rectified. We just have to manage these things as we go along. So, Brydale Road, it's got a few challenges. It's got the damp, it's got a little bit of a smell at the moment, but both of them are gonna get rectified. Now, in terms of an agency perspective, very good marketing campaign. We established the marketing price, established the marketing material, had buyers through the front door, and received a full asking price offer. So the client is very happy, especially when it was done in such a small time period. As I look at it from a business perspective and as an estate agent, these properties are great to work with, even though they are not the sexiest homes. Why? Well, ultimately, it's cash flow for the business. Because of the buyer pool, we can put this on the market and we can turn them over quite fast as long as the solicitors do what they need to do. Whereas if we were dealing with the top end of the market, they can take a lot longer to sell simply because the buyer pool and the demographic of buyer is massively narrowed. However, I've got a lot more to do today. We're going to go and establish, or at least start, our marketing strategy ready to essentially approach sellers in the market who we feel we can help with actually a marketing campaign, a strategy that is more than an agent taking photos and slapping it on Rightmove. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get back next week with the damp specialist and see how the damp course is going on at Brydale. Okay, so we're just on our way to St Andrew's Court, just off Knocktorham Lane. It's a property we've had on the market for a couple of months now. Offers over 700. It's a cracking little place, and we had a sale fall through. We then found a new buyer, so it's moving in the right direction. However, this property used to rent for a hell of a lot of money. So we're going to go up, take a little look around, and then we're going to see a property that's being renovated. So stick with us and let's check out some of these properties that are on the books. So this is St Andrew's Court. Now it's just off Knocktorham Lane, and Knocktorham Lane on the Wirral is renowned for having homes that are £2, even sometimes £3 million. However, this was a rental property and it was renting for nearly £4,000 a month. It's a cracking property, however, it's been empty for around about 2 years. We've got a property very similar that's actually just been repossessed, and that's gone on the market for the exact same price as this, but it needs more work. So I can imagine maybe in a year, it's highly likely that that property will still be on the market, but this one has been sold not once, but twice. Altogether, it's around about 2,400 square foot. It was on the market for offers over £700,000, and it's got 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. How did we get involved? Well, the lead came from Google. This property in particular went on the market with a high street agent. The landlord was essentially selling his portfolio. Been empty for 2 years, like I said. Within 3 months of it being on the market, it only had 2 viewings with the high street agent. Seller gave us a call, we came in and actually applied and developed a bit of a slightly different marketing strategy to get more eyes on the property, because that's what it needed. More eyes, more people through the front door. So let's go inside St Andrew's Court and see what someone was spending £4,000 a month on. Now these are the properties that I get excited about. Now this was on the market for 3 months with a high street agent, and ultimately it had 2 viewings. Now that's not sufficient here. And when I first entered the estate agency world, for me it was all about strategy and actually positioning the property in the right way. Far too often, estate agents will take photos, create a fancy floor plan and simply put it on Rightmove. To me, that's a bit of a hit and hope chance. So we developed a marketing strategy around this property to essentially open up the realms of the buyer demographic and get more people through the front door. So this property went from 2 viewings in 3 months, come on with us, and had 24 viewings and 4 offers. The offers were all above asking price. Now that's another issue with properties like this, and an issue I find within the industry: overpricing. Now this is sale agreed at an offer over £700,000. It was previously on for £850,000. Now, as a seller, would you rather achieve over an asking price offer, or would you want that feeling that you're giving something away for free? Now, as we go on in these videos, we'll be talking about the marketing strategies and how we develop them. But for now, I think we should take a look around St Andrew's Court. Now, when it comes to properties like this, you do find more often than not that people expect a bit of a games room, an extra reception room, and this is exactly it. So the former garage, now converted into the games room, huge cinema screen. If I was a kid, it's exactly where I would want to spend my time. And more importantly, would you convert your garage into a games room or another reception room? Now recently we wrote an article for the Daily Mail exactly on this. I think I still sit on the side of actually, I'd prefer a garage. Does it add much more value, or are you just missing out on needed space in the property? However, taking myself back to being 14 years old, there's only one thing I want to do. It's sit on that chair and throw COD on the screen. Now what I love about this property is the landing. Like, it is just the centerpiece of the property. Massive chandelier, anchor point of the home, and we've got all the bedrooms coming off it in one central reservation. However, the master is where the magic is in this property. Now, the master suite, as I say, is the magic of this property. We've got a walk-in wardrobe. We've got a second walk-in wardrobe that takes us down to the bathroom. As expected in a master suite, there's also a master bathroom. Now, to me, this property needs quite a bit of work, and it's mainly seen in the garden and the bathrooms. Now, looking at this jacuzzi suite, to me, I would rip this out. We've got a walk-in sauna and shower, but again, it's a little bit dated, it's a little bit battered, and I think overall in a property like this, realistically, you're probably going to spend around about £100,000, if not a little bit more, to bring it up to standard. Now, just like the internal part of the property, the external could do with some love and care. Now, this is a whole space that needs renovating. Internally, externally, what does that cost look like? Well, I would estimate £150,000. Now, as we mentioned before, this is a space and a home that was rented for £4,000 per month. We've had it on the market at offers over 700, and we achieved that offer. However, it's great to work with a seller who's very open-minded. We needed a gardener to come regularly to look after this because it's been empty for 2 years. The fence came down in the storm and he's had that fixed. This is a huge property and it needs a lot of love. So that's a wrap at St Andrew's Court. A huge property, and I think you'll agree, quite amazed that it was previously a rental property, but it was generating £4,000 per calendar month. Now, let's look at this property from a business perspective. Was it worth our time? Well, the commission was £12,000, including the VAT. Now, that sounds like a huge number. However, when we break it down, that's not what we walk away with. Because ultimately, we have our marketing costs, photography, videography, drone footage, paid ads. We've got our time at the property, meeting buyers, agreeing sales, going through the sales progression, and ultimately, with this, recovering the sale. We've also got to remember that HMRC takes something called VAT, and that is 20% straight away gone. Now, it's not just working time, it's not money in, it's not money out. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into this. And as an estate agent who is self-employed, I only get paid when this property actually sells. So we're gonna leave here, we're gonna head down 10 minutes down the road, we're gonna go meet Jake, the electrician. He's currently renovating a property on the Woodchurch. So let's jump in the battle box and get down there. So as we've just jumped back into the car, got a message. If you remember, we were talking in the evening to the prospective client out in Canada and her brother out in South Africa. They've just given us the authorization to market the property, so that's a nice one to bring on. It's a 3-bed bungalow in Greasby. We'll probably go down next week and have a real good look at it, work out exactly how we're going to market this property to the right demographic of buyer, and then get it on the market as soon as possible. However, that's a good win in my eyes for the day. So we're just heading back to the office, and we will follow up with an email, just say thank you, and we'll look forward to working with them. Not the first clients that we've worked with who aren't in the country this year, so it's nice that Google's doing its thing. So we've just arrived at Jake, the electrician's property. He doesn't know we're here yet, but something interesting about how Jake purchased this property is he did something called an assisted sale. So his dad was trying to sell this property about 1.5 years ago, again, having no luck. So Jake went in, absolutely took the property back to brick, renovated it, sold it at a higher price, gave his dad what he wanted, and the profit share was Jake's, and that's how he got the deposit. So essentially, purchased this property. He's gone in, taken this back to brick, knocked walls down, totally re-renovating it and giving it a whole new lease of life. However, I think it's now worth going in, seeing where he's up to, and ultimately seeing, is he going to rent the property or is he going to take it to the open market? Let's take a look around. He's still in his van. Oh. Jake. He's upstairs, he doesn't know. I was trying to jump out on you. Essentially, have you explain what you've done to the place and why, what you did. We'll go into the garden, talk about that, we'll talk about the driveway. So we just come into the property that Jake just bought. Jake, the electrician's with us now. Jake, looking back on this property, what did you first pay for it?
So initially the price was valued at 167. I managed to get it for 128.
That's quite a big difference. Why is there such a difference in the price range there?
Yeah, I think it's been on the market for a while. A lot of people who come to view it said there's too much work to be done. Because it's classed as a cottage, it's a bit quirky, so people like modern, people like tradition, and this is a bit more traditional. And I think, like I said before, most people thought it was too much work to be done. And probably that's about it really, I think.
So you mentioned there, obviously a lot of people coming into the property, it needed a lot of work. What have you done to it?
So everything, literally, new heating system, a full electrical rewire, obviously the knock through, put the steel in, bifolds, new bathroom, new kitchen, obviously the garden will be landscaped when that's finished, and then a complete renovation basically, yeah.
How many weeks have you been going so far?
I'm on the 4th month now.
Okay, so earlier on I was saying that obviously the way you purchased this in terms of kind of getting that deposit was a little bit different than the normal route. And this is totally a different property than what we sold for you down in Eastham. What have been the biggest lessons on this one that you didn't have on the last one?
So the last one had a lot of structural work we do, if you remember rightly. So obviously that took a lot of money out of the budget. This one's been quite straightforward, to be honest. No structural work, it's just been mainly cosmetic. And obviously, like I said, the rewire central heating system on the steel has been the bulk of it. And then obviously a little thing like the bifold doors. Obviously was what a lot of customers want, open space. Learning curves, there's things I would do again, things I wouldn't do again, and I could be 10 properties in and probably be doing the same thing.
And what are they? Because obviously if there's stuff that you wouldn't do, that's probably coming with quite a heavy cost. So in terms of looking at this property, what have you spent money on that you kind of sit there and go, actually not a chance would I do it again?
Probably the media wall behind you. Obviously I think it's a nice feature. A lot of people want the media wall, especially in a kitchen this size, but just the cost of it really, the cost of materials, and I feel like it might be a bit overwhelming when people come in, they might think it's a bit too loud, but then it's personal preference. So
and overall, so far, obviously I know you've got the garden, the driveway to do, you're mainly focusing on the internal parts of the property.
Yeah.
How much do you reckon you've spent so far?
So far, I think we're about 24 to 28, around that.
How much more do you reckon you have to spend?
I've got in my head 35, but that's with mortgage repayments as well.
Yeah.
So 35, that's where I want to come on.
Okay, and what are your expectations? Obviously, I'm not giving you a marketing price for the property at the moment because we want to see everything done and how we're going to target that market. But in an ideal world, what do you want for it at the end?
Ideally,
yeah,
315.
So I definitely think that's possible. But as you know with the last property, and even your experience with a high street agent, there does have to be a little bit more that gets done in the marketing. So from my point of view, when we're coming in, we may have to spend a little bit more to get that reach of buyer to come in. But at the same time, this is an area where people don't move far from family. So hopefully we're getting someone walk in and just throw the sofa out straight away. Well, in terms of upstairs, I know you've rejigged that. Yeah. Should we head up and you actually explain exactly what you've done upstairs?
Yeah. So originally this was the bathroom. There was a wall here, a partitioned wall here, and this obviously had a bath and a sink here. No window, and there was a skylight in here which was letting the light through, and this was obviously a bedroom. And then here was a bedroom door which would lead round to here. So this was now a part of the landing, which was really bit of dead space with a door into the bedroom, and then here was a little toilet, and obviously there was a wall.
And at the time it just didn't flow, did it? No. So from a saleability point of view, it's great now that we've got another bedroom because the front bedroom's not been touched at all.
No.
And obviously you've made the bathroom bigger. Have you noticed, have you lost anything, gained anything? What do you feel about the flow?
So I feel like obviously in here now I've created a bigger bedroom. So you can see I've obviously gained an extra 6 foot by 3 foot of space in there in the bedroom. And then in here I've now gained a family size bathroom which I can incorporate the bath, a shower, a sink and a toilet together, as well as having a window, which was one of the biggest things because it was letting no natural light in the existing bathroom, whereas here now we have natural light, which is a big selling point, I think.
And you putting spotlights in here?
And obviously these spotlights in here, electric mirror, etc., just to let in a bit more ambient light. And then through here, this was obviously a bigger bedroom, but I've obviously put a stud wall up to make this room a bit smaller so we could incorporate the bathroom, but still it's still a double-sized bedroom. And then obviously from upstairs I moved the boiler and I just created a little boiler cupboard in here.
Now in terms of moving the boiler, where was it previously located?
It was in the kitchen originally.
So for anyone who sat there at home, how much did it cost you to relocate that?
So the boiler conversion, obviously it's a bit cheaper for me because I've done a lot of the labour and my brother's a heating engineer, but look for around about £3,500. I think I was quoted from external companies to do the boiler conversion and move the boiler upstairs.
Yeah, okay. But again, it's still a good sized room, isn't it?
Yes, we say it's still a double bedroom.
You've now got 3 double bedrooms rather than
2 doubles.
2 doubles.
And a single.
Yeah. Now, I feel, Jake, like I've just been dropped into Emmerdale and I'm in Shadrach's garden. What on earth is going on out here? How long is it going to take? And what are you doing with it?
So the plans here are to...
And you look a bit like Shadrach with that hair as well.
Bradley Cooper. The plans are to obviously lift these flags and relay a new patio area here.
Where's that going up to?
We're going to take that up to this border here.
Okay.
And obviously this will be flags up to here. And then from here, we've got to turf it right down, cut the hedges back, put in some borders, a few plants, and then obviously down there, we've got to turf that, open that up and utilise the space as much as possible. Obviously previously this was a porch, again, so I've took this porch out just to give more space. So obviously this would all be brought down to ground level, and this would just be a nice sitting area. Obviously there's the sun all day here, and then again from here, just going to keep it simple, turf it, borders down the side, so we've still got a bit of greenery and a bit of plant, and then let the new homeowners move in. And
now it's quite a lengthy garden, isn't it? Do you know the distance altogether on the length?
No, couldn't tell you, sorry.
No, don't be, mate. It's what do you think the cost is of this? Because to me, this is quite a big job to dig out.
Yeah, so basically, as you can see, there's two different levels. So obviously, steps down here, I'm going to try and achieve one same level right through. So obviously, you're going to rotate this, get as much of this up as I can, try and spread it around as much as I can. Then I'll get a whack it down, make it as level as possible, and then obviously lay the turf.
Okay. What much do you think that'll cost?
Cost wise, I don't know. You know, I've got a sum in my head, say 2,500. Obviously, that's the turf, topsoil, couple of new fence panels, and obviously then the flagging will be a separate cost again. I will try and salvage what flags I can. I might try and reuse them and make the patio smaller and relay them, give them a clean down, see how they come up first before I start relaying them.
Relaying it. Well, for those who are sat watching this back at home, drop in the comments and tell us if you think Jake will do it for £2,500 or if you think he's kind of shooting for the stars with it. It'll be really interesting to come back, see that work and actually see exactly how much he's spent on it. I think from my point of view, we've always got to look at it as the end user. So the end user in this scenario is going to be the person who buys the property, whether they're buying it to rent out or if they're buying it to live in it. And it's all about their experience of using the garden. So I personally think if you're going to turf this out, you probably want to leave them a mower because it's quite a big garden, but at the same time, it is a space that they can enjoy as well. But Jake, really appreciate you giving us some time to come and have a look at this. And I'm looking forward to seeing it actually
so am I.
Finished and done.
So am I.
Not too long. How long do you reckon until we're back?
Mid-September.
Mid-September. Well, mid-September, you should be looking at this property again, hopefully all finished. Thanks very much, Jake.
No worries, bud.
So, just taking a phone call about a shared ownership property. Now, we've just sold one of these. It was the first one, and I'm going to be very clear, it's going to be the last one. They are an absolute rabbit warren to deal with. And the one we dealt with, the offer was accepted New Year's Eve. We're now in August, and it's just completed. 8 months to get through. Now obviously we want to help everyone, but there's a cost. It's got to work as a business, and then there's a time frame we've got to stick to. And to me, shared ownership just are not viable. So ultimately you have to speak to the developer. You have to pay out of your pocket to get a RICS valuation. The developer has to be happy with it, and they have to give the authority to market the property. Now, even marketing the property, you can staircase, which essentially means that you're going to buy 100% of that property to then sell it, or you sell your ownership percentage. Now that might look great as you're scrolling through the portals and you see a property that's a 3-bed semi-detached in a great area for £90,000. However, the reality is a lot different. And then when it comes to the actual conveyancing stages, so conveyancing stages are when you're purchasing the property, there's a lot of things that you have to do. Obviously, we're now looking at land registry, we're looking at service management, we're looking at the actual ownership and speaking to the developer, and they're not always the easiest people to speak to, let alone the solicitors that you're dealing with, because they will have their own solicitor that they want to pass that work to. As a prime example, the client that we helped sell the shared ownership last year, they staircased, so they bought 100%. However, the land registry then took 8 months to update, which means they cannot sell their property to their new buyer until the land registry is in their name officially. Bit of a headache, wouldn't deal with it again. but at the same time, we're here to give that advice to people in that position. That's exactly what we've done there. We're not the agent to deal with that property, but hopefully they get on the move. We've recommended an agent that may take that property on. So that's episode 1 coming to a close. Now this channel is all about the wins, the setbacks, and everything in between within an estate agency business. Hit like and subscribe, and we will see you on next week's episode.